Oh, you know what, Mike Swift?
What's that, Stephen Lewis? I'm gonna one up you on the intro here because I became somebody that we totally despise. So I was in the middle of working, walking down the street, and I got a text message from one of the kids, and I'm responding and not paying any attention to the world around me whatsoever. By the time finished my text and hit send, I realized I just crossed the street without even looking up 1 second. I was
Oh,
mortified.
you're that guy. You're lucky I was. You're lucky I wasn't on the street.
Yeah, I know. You would have ran me over
I
for
would have.
sure. But then technically, does that constitute as a hate crime at that point?
No, I don't hate you. I was just trying to. I was just
Oh,
trying to teach you a lesson.
oh, no.
I
A
got to tell you,
painful lesson. A
if there's a
painful,
learning,
possibly
I don't think it's
deadly
a hate
lesson.
crime if there's a learning opportunity there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In a strange way, I see your point.
Please don't. For once, I'm going to say don't encourage me. He's Mike Swift. I'm Stephen Lewis. This is what's on your mind. What are we?
Hello.
Last day of June, 2026. Here we go.
Oh
Uh,
man, it is
wherever
last
you
day of
are.
my son being the age of 16.
Wow.
Sad.
We're in the midst of a giant heat wave, so I don't know where you
Mm,
are, but it's in the 90s here, but it feels like 100 plus here because it is what it is. But I wanted to. I guess it's my turn to go first. I think, right?
it is. It is.
Okay, so I'm gonna open this up, and being two radio guys, I think it's a good time to talk about radio.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna mention the company by name because I used to work for them. And you know
Me
what?
too.
Despite being, but I left one time on my own recourse, and the other time I left, it was my name came up on the spreadsheet. So like it even then, when that happened, I never necessarily said a disparaging word about them publicly. And to this day, there are things the company does that I really like a lot, and I learned a lot from it. That being said, there's a line in the movie Moneyball. I don't know, you've seen Moneyball, I'm assuming, with Brad Pitt and Jonah.
No, I
You've never seen
have
Moneyball?
not. I have
Okay.
not seen Moneyball just because I don't want it to ruin the premise of baseball.
It's a fantastic movie, and Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill are, it's a true story. With the Oakland
Mm-hmm.
A's. I believe it's set in the early 2000s, and
Yes.
the Oakland A's went on this winning streak because they put a team together based on percentages. So they were paying less for players, but like this guy gets on base more. So they wanted them in the field. They basically put this team together that got them all the way to the playoffs. And it was kind of the recipe that the Boston Red Sox used to end up breaking their curse and winning the World Series a few years later. They took a page out of Billy Bean and Billy Bean's book and kind of created the same team, and it did really well. But there's a line in Moneyball where Brad Pitt's character is trying to teach Jonah Hill's character how to cut a baseball player because it comes to a point to a time where guys get cut, guys get traded. And the line that Pitt uses is he asks him to go, he's like, pretend I'm a player, go ahead and cut me. And Jonah Hill's character goes into this whole like, hey man, really want to thank you for all the things you've done for the team. And you've been a great player over the years. And Pitt stops him in the middle of it. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to cut him. He's like, what? He's like, cut him. If you're going to cut him, it's a business deal. Just cut him. Don't, do you want one to the head or do you want three to the chest so you bleed out? And I feel like that's what this company has done to radio. Instead of giving it one to the head and just killing it, it is slowly over the course of since circa 2000, we'll say 2008 ish until now, just put another bullet in it to let it bleed out, and it's essentially become like Death of a Thousand Cuts, which is it's I believe, I can't remember where Death of a Thousand Cuts comes from, but it's, you might not get one vicious stab on a person, but if you cut them multiple times, they eventually die from all the blood loss over, you know, 1,000 cuts. And I think that's where we're close to with radio. And for those who don't know, like, I wish I would have found, I'm envious of people who have been able to find alternatives and find something they love because maybe they weren't in it long enough or they got cut at the right time. But I was obviously not one of those people. And I know that technology has changed, but there were so many people that were let go last week, and not deservedly so, because it's not anything that they did wrong. And it's just frustrating. I know when I came back to the company after they let me go, you have to do a yearly review of yourself, and then your direct would do a review on top of it. And after I was gone for 8 months before I returned to the company, and when I did return to the company, I could see my last year's performance review when I had to do my next year's performance review. And it was all, I could read the whole exceeds expectations, you know, often exceeds expectations, does this, yet I was still let go. And I remember the first time that happened, you know, I didn't know how to feel because it had never happened before. Like, I had never, that was the first time I had ever lost a job. And I think in radio, there's always some level of, you worry about that because you're always as good as your last show. But I think since a lot of this started in 2008, and I remember it in 2008, this company calls it the Obama Day Massacre. But what a lot of people don't know is prior to 2008, in 2007, and I think I might have talked about my contract dispute back then before. There's a tattoo on my arm that commemorates it. But towards the end of 2007, I was speaking with this company about a job in Connecticut. And I had gone through a lot of the process. No one knows this. No one knew this. I don't think I've ever made this public before either. But I had gone through the motions of everything to the point where at Thanksgiving, they were really serious about hiring me. By Christmas break, I went into Christmas break under the guise that, hey, we're under a hiring freeze until January. But how soon can you get here if we were to do this? And I said, I only need, my contract's up. So I only needed a couple of weeks. I just want to give proper notice or whatever and whatnot, to the point where I was looking for places to live in January. Fast forward to election day in January, and that was the year that President Obama was sworn in. And on that day, hundreds of people were let go. Mm-hmm. And it was camouflaged because everybody's focus was on the election.
Oh, yep.
And that was the first time they called it a RIF, a reduction in force. And I remember calling the guy that I was talking to, and I was like, hey, I'm glad you still have a job, but I'm guessing the one that you were going to offer me was now off the table. And he was like, dude, there's like nothing I've ever seen before or whatever. And that's kind of where it started. And it's kind of weird because I watched this company, in 2004, and they're not the only ones. I will defend them on that aspect. What happens is you had all these radio companies that truly, honestly forgot what radio was about and forgot what made radio special, because they all went to this massive form where they had to own everything. So when they start buying all these things and they take all these companies public, they become slaves to their stockholders. And the only thing stockholders give a flying fuck about is their own bottom line, money, bank account. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how piss poor of a job you are running your company, as long as the stockholders are getting their dividends, they don't care. And you start running things and you start using words like efficiency and, just all the other corporate bullshit terms that go along with it. So when this company went public, all of a sudden they became at the mercy of their stockholders. And in 2004, they, like a lot of other radio companies, started buying up radio stations for 8, 10, 15, 20 times cash value. If you don't know what that is, you're paying way more than something was ever going to actually be worth. So they buy all these things up in their quest to own everything. Well, then, if you remember in 2008, and if you're not old enough to remember 2008, the economy bottomed out prior to 2008. I think it started in what, 2004 ish, when everything started to, the bottom started to drop out. All of a sudden, everybody that borrowed money, the company you and I were working for at the time, had problems with it too. You wanted all this money. All of a sudden, these people started knocking on the doors going, "Hey, brother, remember when you borrowed all this money from me? Well, I kind of need it back
Mm-hmm.
now." And well, we don't have it. So what do we do? So we keep kicking this massive $1 billion debt down the street, renegotiating it as much as we can. And the people who get sacrificed are the lifeblood of the product that you're putting out there. And that's what frustrates me, because this started with when I wasn't for working for this company. I was so frustrated and irritated with the fact that I had to carry Ryan Seacrest on my radio station all the time, because he's been force fed down everybody's fucking throat since the early 2000s. And there were people that in the company that he worked for that didn't want to carry that bullshit show from 10 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but had no choice. And it just irritated the shit out of me that I had to carry it when I didn't work for the company. And ironically, I used to cut 2 hours out of it and just air the commercials that had to go with it.
I remember those days.
So I didn't have to carry the whole thing. And it just, that's where it started. And then you had people, and I'm guilty of this too. You had people that all of a sudden were, oh, I'm in 7 different cities now. Isn't this so cool? And I was guilty of, hey, I'm on here, I'm on here, I'm on here. And then you think about it, and at some point in time, it hit home with me. It was like a punch in the gut, because it started with Seacrest, because Seacrest took all these $45,000 or less jobs away from people across the country on every station he was. Because before you got force fed Ryan Seacrest, there was an actual person that was in there talking to people that all of a sudden went away. So Ryan could make sure you knew how to keep up with the fucking Kardashians 4 times an hour. So that's where it started. And then you had all these jobs that went away because of that. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in corporate radio, they went, hey, well, we don't need a person 10 to 3 anymore. You know what? We probably don't need a person from 7 to midnight anymore either. We can just voice track and have somebody record that because nobody cares. And then, you know what? We don't really need a morning show that's live and local. We can stream a really good morning show in from someplace else, regardless of whether or not they fit in with the vibe of that individual city. And that's what I think bothers me the most, is what's happened is, if you remember traveling, and probably people who were born in the 2005s and up won't remember it, but if you were born anytime before that and you went on a road trip and you listened to the radio in your car, the cool thing was wherever you were going, that radio station had a different vibe than the one you listened to in your hometown. I mean, I can say for a fact, in Detroit, the radio stations there probably played more Eminem than any other stations in the country did, simply because it fit the vibe of that city for obvious reasons. Like I was from Cincinnati, so my radio stations had a little more conservative base to it. So there were songs that I didn't hear until I went out of town, and then I'm like, oh wow, why are they playing this? And it just kind of like, you lost that flavor. And the other thing that happened that kind of hurts my feelings is radio stations used to work hand in hand with record labels. You had all these guys that would travel around and try to convince, at the time, people like me to play their records. And there were certain times where you would go, no, that just doesn't fit for me. Or, hey, not right now, maybe a few weeks from now it might work. Or there was something that you went, you know what? I like this. I'm going to take a chance on it. And there were a lot of records that weren't necessarily quote unquote hits nationally, but they fit the vibe of what we were doing at the time. So I would give that a chance. And again, I didn't give it a chance to where I was playing it 100 times a week. but I would give it a chance in the right places because, hey, this is going to work for us. And
Mm-hmm.
you lost that special thing. You lost the flavor. You lost the vibe to it. And the one thing I will say about the stations that I work for now, if you're driving through Cincinnati and you listen to any of those stations, they sound like they're in Cincinnati. They don't sound like they're piped in from someplace else, you know. And I can tell you from growing up in Cincinnati, Cincinnati cares about Cincinnati first. It doesn't give two flying fucks about what's going on in Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago. Like, it just doesn't. It's the way it's always been. It's the way it has been for my entire life. And if you took a poll right now, you'd find out I'm still right to this day, which is why the
Mm-hmm.
stations that actually do well are the ones that cater to that fact. So it just bothers me that all the flavor is completely gone. And same thing with personalities. The thing that made, and the kind of funny thing is, never in my life did I ever call a radio station in, and then I ended up hanging out in the studio with my friend Jeff, who actually lost his job last week. I ended up hanging out with him and becoming like a sidekick on his show and doing things, and that's how I got into it. But I'd never called a radio station before that. But I learned pretty quickly that the special thing was, and you experienced this too, the person listening that you could convince to call in, there used to be, not now, there used to be a 90% chance that the person you talked to that picked up the phone was the same person that was cracking the mic on the air and talking about things.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a special thing to that went away. And then all of a sudden, like circa 2000, what, 10, 8, 9, radio started doing everything they could to convince you not to call them. Hey, leave a voicemail on our app and we'll play it back. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how fucking lame that sounds in 2026? Probably about as lame as it sounded when you came up with the idea in 2008. But like, all that stuff went away. You haven't conditioned anybody to call. And all along the time, you have lost your audience. You've forced your audience to go to other places because you've taken out what made everything special, and that was the talent. I can hear Taylor Swift's music in 100 different places, but I can't get the talent hear the things between Taylor Swift's music and Ed Sheeran's music in any other place other than the voice that was between there. And that's now become so watered down across the board. In fact, in most stations, if you get in the car, we'll take the Midwest, for example. Let's say you start in Detroit and you want to take 75 and drive all the way to Florida. Most likely, you will hear the same personalities and the same music all the way down that highway with little to no flavor other than what it is now. Because what happens is the guy that used to sit in that office that went, you know what? I'm going to play this song because I'm in Tennessee and this song fits Tennessee. That's gone because now 5 people have decided what you're going to play on 200 and something stations across the country. And it just sucks because you turned everything into a watered down version of what it used to be. And now you can't figure out why your revenue's down, your audience is down, and everything else because you push them away. And then
Yep.
you keep firing people because for some reason you think you can cut your way to prosperity, or you think that a voice from San Diego that's pumped into St. Paul is going to do the job better than someone in St. Paul. And that's where I strongly disagree. Are they more talented in some cases? Maybe, but did they have a better feel of what's going on than the person does that loved being on the air that was from their hometown? Absolutely not. And even though you can tell someone what to say, and I used to do it all the time, you know, you can tell me what to say about a specific city, but if I've never been there, I don't know what that feels like. And it's different when I say something as opposed to when I have experienced something. You can tell you can tell when you're talking about it and everything else. And all that kind of stuff has gone away. And there's part of me that goes, I'm really honored that I was able to be part of the last great heyday where we were able to do something like put on giant concerts and have fun. And our station sounded not as cookie cutter as everyone else. I mean, was it safe? Sure, because there were guidelines that we followed. But at the same time, it was a flavor all its own. And that's what's gone away. And I hate the fact that all these people are out of work, and not because they have a lack of talent, not because they did anything wrong, simply because someone thought we could be a more efficient if we do it this way, and don't care that we pretty much put a bullet in something that has been around forever that people loved and taken anything special about it all the way because you've wanted to push people in different directions. And that's what breaks my heart, I guess.
You know, and it's sad. Um, to kind of backtrack, death by a thousand cuts was a way of torture, slow torture in Chinese. In
That's right.
China, I believe this was ancient China. Forgive me if I'm wrong in the exact point of origin, but it was an Asian torture, form of torture. And that's where that comes from. And it's very fitting for what's happening right now in radio because you're right. You've had all of this talent for years, and made them feel like they were top of the heap important. Whether they were or were not, you made them feel that way and that they were untouchable. And now with a click of a button, with a stroke of a pen, in a matter of hours, days, you've gotten rid of those people, and now they're left going, now what? And
Right.
it's sad. You know, when I first got into radio, back in '97, I knew the face of radio was already changing at that point in time, but I wasn't aware of how big of a change was on the way. Like I saw analog moving to digital. I saw a lot of things become automated, but never in a million years did I think that it would get to the point that it is now, and how sad that it's gotten, because yeah, you've had one person talking to 250 cities across the country, and the audience beforehand was trained not to call into the radio station any longer.
Correct.
You kind of had them bred to not interact directly with the radio station, and then you slid in these DJs who weren't necessarily AI, but they were just piped in from one city into a bunch of other cities, and the listener really, at first, it sounded cool. You had this big city sounding DJ in a small town area, and they would cleverly stick the station's, name and call letters in there, on automation, to make it sound like that DJ was right there in that city, and
They
and,
weren't.
and they weren't talking about anything local, and there was a reason for that. And that might have worked in some of the mid markets and bigger cities, but when you had somebody like in small town Georgia that had this DJ that wasn't talking about something happening in their area, they were going, "Well, what the heck? What's going on? Why aren't they interacting?" And then they would call in, and the phone line would ring for hours and hours and hours until, they would get kicked off the line or whatever, or they would just give up. But it it wasn't the same. And now you had this generation that's kind of grown up with the radio being this dead entity that once had all this life and um
You know,
personality.
when you and I started, and I were like, I mean, you and I have both been the night jockey at a certain
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Fucking night jock was the cool. If you were a 20 something, the night jock was the coolest job on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to
Yeah.
deal with the little kids that would call and harass the hell out of you, but it was the
Well,
coolest
whatever.
on the planet because you were the party guy. Like
Yes.
you were, everybody wanted to have fun. Everybody wanted to catch part of your vibe, and all that's gone. And like all these
All of
callers
it's
that are
gone.
watered down and fake. And again, I'm guilty of it. I have used someone's voice that I have used before, because I like their response. So I just changed the question ahead of time from what I originally,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it, but I
But
don't,
we've all been guilty of it to an extent.
but it's,
Us jocks.
but the other side I see from like the business is I hear people and I'm like, God, why do you have had no real like growth whatsoever? Because you used to have an elevation, like you would go from nights, then you were like, you know what, you graduated from nights to afternoons, or you graduated from afternoons to be in the morning show guy, and like you don't, and then you had people on the weekends and people that worked late at night that were kind of like your bench players that you could pull off the bench and put in when stuff,
Yes.
you know,
And
and that
that's where you started
right
when you moved from being a board op, which is somebody who
doesn't talk and
operates.
just runs things.
Yeah, they just switch things on and off and turn the volume up and down and play the commercials when they're supposed to play and whatnot. You that's how you start, and then you move up to one of those late night positions or an overnight position that you may not still talk at one, at the beginning, but then you start to get your feet wet on the weekends here and there. And then you move on to nights and then afternoons and then mornings or whatever, but that's all gone. All of that's gone.
Yeah. And it's kind of like when I started, like there were cities that I'm like, man, I want to work there. I want to get this. Man, it must be so cool.
Yeah.
And I'll be
Hmm.
honest, the company that, started this discussion, like there was a time when I wanted to work for them because I thought,
Yes.
oh man, this would be so cool to work here because you get this and you get this. And then I realized pretty quickly that, nah, man, like the top 25 or 50 people in the company might see some of that, but the rest of us never
Hmm.
would. And even when and my first boss with this company got let go last week, and that sucks too because he's
Yes.
still one of my favorite
Yes.
people on the planet.
Good dude. Good
Like
dude.
him and I'll randomly text random crap every now and again, and just there were so many times where, I mean, you were there too. We would just sit in his office and laugh hysterically
Yes.
about
And just
dumb
have
stuff
discussions. Yes. We
for,
would me, you, and the night rock guy
like would just
would,
sit in
would sit there and just vibe and talk about random. I remember we had a discussion about would you take $1 million for Ronda Rousey to kick you in the pants?
there. Oh yeah.
And it was just like a random discussion. Like it was just stupid locker room talk, if you will. But it was just something out of the day where just regular human beings were just being just that in an office.
And I used to think that like behind the scenes of a radio station would make a great reality show because
Yes, it would.
because of all the
I'm
stuff that
kind
went
of
on.
I I'm sure it's been pitched several times, but legal has gone no.
So it was just kind of like I
Yeah.
realized, like after working for that company, I realized that you know what, there was no way that because of the way, like I almost had to forget how to program so I could fit that mold because I was never going to be allowed to do anything that I wanted to do. And that was
Hmm.
frustrating because I knew what
Hmm.
I needed to do. But I was never going to get any kind of support. I was never going to get any kind of like money funneled back into my station because it was too small on their list of priorities and because the company owed $90 billion to whoever. So it was just never going to be. And it was just sad though that like I had no you know we had no people, and that was the thing. And like the lifeblood of radio has always been its people and its talent, and that's what breaks my heart to see so many people that were there. There's a guy I know that was a friend of mine, 39 years in the same place, gone. you know
Yeah.
like just you
And
see.
unbelievably, like he didn't matter. Like the next day, it was just like, whatever.
And my other question now is, I mean, first, for the people who are out of work, I hope you find something that you can be,
Yes.
and again,
Yes.
like I'm very frustrated with the way my last, I took the last job for not even we'll just call it my capital city job. I took it for way less money than I should have ever agreed to take it for, but it was a labor of love for me and I wanted to do it. And then to have it end the way it did, where I was lied to. And what really pissed me off, I hate the terminology they use, but what really pissed me off was the ops manager said, "Hope you got my parting gift." And the parting gift was a fucking Amazon box to pack up my stuff in.
Yeah.
And
That's
that,
that's
to
just
this day, it is the most tactless thing I have ever seen. And I tell you, Mike Swift, it took every ounce of strength and resolve that I had in my body not to take a shot at knocking his fat head off his fat shoulders.
yeah.
Like it just really did. Because I'm like,
Hmm.
the situation is bad enough as it is, and just when I think it can't get any more low fucking class, you find a way to do that.
Exactly. And I
And
truly hope that somewhere in this he ends up with the same fate, and somebody is just as heartless and callous about it as he
and
was with you.
and to the people that like you get let go because you see these, hey, we're restructuring and unfortunately your talents are no longer needed. It's a pretty big blow when you lose, because I think there's a difference between losing a job and losing something you love and something you're passionate about. Because a job was just over broke. It was something that you were just doing to pay your bills, but it wasn't something that you necessarily put your heart and soul into. And I'm the kind of person where if I
Exactly.
love what I'm doing and I'm passionate about it, I mean, there were times where our old boss and we would get those memos that like, hey, we're closing early for the holidays. Everybody could leave at 1. And him and I would be like,
Hmm.
we were the
Yeah,
first
well,
ones here and we'll be the last ones to leave. That's nice that you throw that out there, but it's not going to happen for us because you were passionate about it. I cared about how my
hmm.
station sounded. I cared about, you know, the people that were working with me and all that stuff. And it just sucks because you just feel like, I mean, it makes you feel like you're worthless and like all your efforts just were never noticed and were just done in vain. Like you were never going to get, you know,
Exactly.
like
There were some. Go ahead.
no, it's just you feel like you're not good enough, even though you were. And
Hmm.
you used to use the excuse of ratings, which ratings is the most corrupt bullshit system that I've ever seen in my life, and on any level. Like it just,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
get sometimes you get ratings back, and you're like, I could walk down the street, sit down at an Applebee's, take a poll of everybody in the Applebee's, and get a better response than what this survey gave you. Like, kind of,
Exactly.
you know, but it
And
just
you're referring to the surveys that radio stations and companies pay other companies to do surveys on, and they're always lopsided and inaccurate.
yeah.
Very rarely are they 100% where it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no, not really.
No, it's awful. But it's just kind of one of those things where, like, for the people who are out of work, I really truly hope you find something. And I know like there's other alternatives now where, you can go to YouTube, you can do whatever. But I think even if you do that and you have success at it, there's just something that's not the same. Like I
Hmm.
can't explain it to anybody who's not been in a radio studio, but to turn that microphone on and know that like, man, my voice is in a lot of cars right now. Man, my voice is in a
Hmm.
lot of homes right now. My voice is coming out of a lot of smart speakers right now. And you're talking to people, because everybody has their own niche where there's things in you that you grew up around that you absolutely love that somebody else might not understand. For
Yeah.
me, it's Cincinnati. Like I can tell you where the best ice cream and the best chili is, but not, and you don't get that kind of stuff from reading Wikipedia or reading, a news article or whatever. It's just not the same. And
Yeah.
it sucks because something I love, I've watched so much talent and a lot of people that are far better than I will ever be at it
Hmm.
purged. And a lot of the stuff that made me fall in love with what I was doing is slowly being sucked away because, now the kids get in the car and the first thing they do is plug in their phone and listen to Spotify on their phone,
Yeah.
and it's just, it breaks my heart. And I feel for everybody who is staring in the mirror and trying to figure out what's next. And I don't think radio is going to get any better until the massive companies are forced to start selling off stuff, even if they're not going to make a profit out of it. And hopefully you have some smaller owners who go in and go, you know what, I might buy 6 stations here and then bring in real people to make them work. Because again, I think if you find the combination of using today's technology with real people, there's a sweet spot there that you can probably make a decent amount of money. And I think it can be profitable. But if you owe your stockholders and you're in debt by $90 billion, you're never going to do it. And the company that just purged a bunch of people has been in debt for longer than you and I have worked for it. And the problem is they've
Mm-hmm.
never run that company like it's been in debt. You know, when
No,
you can,
because with COVID basically bailed them out.
oh,
The company that we both worked for, COVID was a godsend. It was the keys to the future for that particular company. Here's your way out because they sent the majority of their workforce home and said, "Hey, don't call us. We'll call you." They didn't have to pay them for a couple of years, and they still ended up right where they
well,
bailed themselves out of.
they let people go who were going to be let go of anyway. And the kind of funny
Well,
thing is,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I left right when there was a project that started that I was kind of helping out with a little bit before I left. That when I saw it, I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs. And this is before anybody even knew what COVID was. And this was
Yeah.
to put a frame of reference in mind. This was summer of 2019. I took my Indianapolis job I literally worked for that company until the end of September. And then the very next weekend after that, the first weekend of October, I started in my indie job for the other company. And then COVID hit the following March. And when
Mm-hmm.
all the cuts started coming then, I was like, nah, this isn't COVID. This was going to happen anyway. COVID just made it look like it was more acceptable than what it
Mm-hmm.
would have been otherwise. And it's just, so that's what's on my mind. The death of something I love and my peers that I think are far more talented than I am that are out of work and shouldn't be. And that sucks.
A lot of people, no matter how am I going to put this? A lot of people, no matter how you feel about their talents, whether you thought that they were great to listen to or not, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of good people, a lot of good hearted people lost their jobs this week and last. And I don't think it's done. I still think there are aftershocks, if you will, um, that are coming. And it's sad because yeah, they did in the meantime, just when you thought that there wasn't a way to kill a great, beautiful art as radio broadcasting is, you found a different way to kill it. And I still have hope. I still believe that there is somebody out there sitting on a great big old pile of money who has some kind of knowledge of the radio industry that's going to go, you know what? Let's see if we can't tip this back into the way things used to be. Let's take a risk. We don't have shareholders to worry about. Let's just go all in. Here's everything I've got and let's see what happens. I still feel like there's somebody out there pushing to make that happen, and I think somebody is going to create just a little bit of a spark, if not a full on change.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so because I feel like that's the way it survives
Mm-hmm.
is to kind of take a page out of the old school book and, I don't know.
Get actual DJs, do actual local contests, have real prizes to give away, have actual content within your broadcast, not just music, not just music that some schmuck sat in a room figuring that this is going to, this is what should be played because they need to have a certain amount of spins from this particular artist. None of the politics.
I think the
Just
other
get back to what it used to be.
I think the other question I have, and it's for probably people who still work at the company that is remaining nameless that we're not talking about, or that we're not mentioning by name. Is there
Right.
any possible way you can take pride in what you're doing when you go into work? Do you feel good about it? I mean,
I know towards
I
the end when
honestly
I was
don't
there, I
know.
didn't.
No, like, I mean, I honestly like, how do you feel good about what you're doing? I mean, I know you have to do it because you gotta,
You have a job to do.
You have a job to do. But do you really? I mean, there was a time like that was part of the other thing is when you did a successful radio promotion or you had a good radio, like from the sales staff to the support staff to the on-air staff to the executive staff, like everybody felt good about it.
Hmm.
Like because it was a total team effort. Now I'm like, when you look at it, do you have any kind of pride, like, and feel good about what you're doing?
I'm sure some of the ones at the top do because they don't care as long as they're getting paid. But yeah, no, I agree with you. At the end of the day, that's what made me feel good about what I was doing. It wasn't the money. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was nice to have a paycheck and be able to pay my bills doing something that I absolutely love doing. But it was still about what I was doing. It wasn't about those other things.
I did too. It was the people you got to meet because you were out. And I was always amazed at the fact that those people remember the people you met when you were out remembered everything you did or said because you were at their dinner table or breakfast table or lunch table every day of their lives. And even if you didn't remember saying it, they remembered for you. And
Hmm.
I was always amazed by that. And like
Yes.
that's something that I think is definitely lost and has definitely gone away now. And it sucks.
Yeah, it always, I'll never forget the first time someone came to me and went, and this happened like I did a bit with my mom that she was actually in on, where one year for her birthday, I pretended to call her at like 3 a.m. to wish her happy birthday. And she played along and pretended I woke her up, and I played it on the air, and that was that. 2 or 3 years after that, I met somebody for the first time, and they brought that up to me and were like, how could you do that to your mother? And blah blah blah. And I'm just like, wow, you actually remembered me doing that. And it was a good feeling to know that not only did you do things where you had fun and seemed or felt like you had a good idea, that there was actual response to it.
Oh
Whether
yeah.
whether that response was positive or negative, there was a response to it.
Sometimes that could bite you in the rear though, because I remember when I was a night jock, I was trying to be I my whole goal as a night jock is I wanted every guy to hate me, but they would go everywhere that I was because that's where their girlfriends were going to be.
Oh
And
yeah.
I remember like we did a thing with the morning show where they were going to call me and wake me up for something. I think Large and I had some kind of rivalry or something going on,
You
and
did.
we were doing something. And he called in the morning, and one girl answered the phone, and then he asked for me again,
Yes,
and
I
then
remember that.
she passed it to another girl who answered the phone, who then
Yeah,
asked
I
for me.
remember that.
And then I finally got the phone and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, and they were just like taken aback.
Hello.
Hi.
Is
Is Dimash there? Can we talk to her, please?
hello?
What did she pass the phone to herself? Are you the same girl we just got through talking to?
No.
Oh my. Can we talk
Hi.
to Demas,
I realize
please?
you guys might be busy, and we hate to, bust up
Just
the party.
put Demas
Can
on
we
the
talk to
phone.
Dimash, please? The guy, not another woman. Hi. Hi, Dimash.
Hey guys.
Good morning. Dimash, nighttime disc jockey here at the radio station, is apparently having a big sleepover.
Are those the maids? Or...
What?
Hi, Dimash. We didn't mean to interrupt your early morning maid service. Oh, that was a bad use of words.
And they aired this in the promo all weekend. And I paid the price for it because any like girl that I talked to, their moms had heard it and thought like I was such a scumbag. Truth be told, there were
That wasn't what happened.
two girls. I think one of them was an intern and the other one was her
Yes.
friend. And they
Yes.
literally crashed in my living room. And I woke up under the guise and I'm like, hey, will you guys help me out with something? And we're not going to say your names on the air, but the morning show is going to call in the morning. Can each of you guys? And literally, it was all pretend, but
Right.
nobody thought it was. Like everybody,
Right.
everybody was like, but I think it backed up what I had because I had imaging that said lock your doors and hide your daughters,
Hide your daughters. Yes.
which at the
Mhm.
time was fitting. Now, would not play quite as well
My
in
God, is
2026
that
America as it
yes?
did in circa
Gosh.
2003, but a little bit different. But yeah,
As a
everybody
matter of
thought
fact, wasn't that on the national promo?
it was on the
Because
national. It was on the national. Station
so
sounds.
yeah, so to paint the picture, there was a CD, and this is how far back this was, of clips of it was almost like the best of some of the radio stations in certain regions. And it was almost like this would get passed around to other stations in other markets, kind of like a promo thing where you can kind of check out what some of the other radio stations were doing, get ideas, steal content from other radio stations, essentially, just to kind of get a feel for what other stations were doing across the country. This was actually a clip that went to other radio stations across the country 1 month in like, yeah, that was like the early 2000s at that time. The reaction, I still remember the female from the morning show going, "Hi, can I speak to Damas?" And she's like, "Hold on." And then the other girl goes, "Hello?" And she's like, "What?" I remember that. I actually remember that.
Yeah. It's so funny though, because it was so not even remotely true. Like it never happened the way it
It
sounded.
didn't happen. I can attest that it actually did not happen. It was all a part of the skit, but yeah, I didn't know you suffered repercussions, if you
Oh
will.
yeah, absolutely. I did. I suffered a lot of repercussions for that. Like people, I mean, I had like even clients didn't want anything to do
Oh
with
yeah,
me
I'm sure.
because I was not the I was the village idiot. Like I was the bad boy. Like, and I had so much fun. Like that was like the greatest time
Mm,
to do it. But again, you're also
it was
talking
fun
about it was. You're talking about a version of me though that did not care. Like I was
Yeah.
everything I wanted to do was get a reaction. And my whole thing was if I shocked you and I made you laugh, I felt like I did my job. I mean, and I probably could have done it better. 100% probably could have done it better. But that's all I cared about at the time. Like there was never any, there was absolutely never going to be any thought of me changing who I was because I was like, if you don't like me, I don't care kind of thing. And, those days are gone now. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's on your mind? Or are you just going with what I had on my mind?
Well, no, I was to an extent, but what's on my mind, and I'll kind of shorten this up because we've kind of talked at length about your topic, which is fine. Which is fine. It's what's happening right now, so I'm perfectly okay with talking about it. But to maybe be a slight palate cleanser, what I was thinking about, what was on my mind the last week. Actually, this kind of got started a couple weeks ago when we were talking about music and writers. But what's on my mind this week are some of my favorite, not I guess if you will, ghostwriters that are in the business and have been around in the business for years, and that some folks may not be aware of who wrote what for who because it happens all the time. And there are some really, really good ones out there that some people aren't aware of. Um, but some of the writers out there, like Ryan Tedder, like if you are a top 40 music lover of any way, shape, or form, I guarantee there's a song out there that Ryan Tedder wrote that you're probably not aware of. From One Republic. Ryan Tedder, the lead singer of One Republic. Ed Sheeran. There's a ton of songs out there that Ed Sheeran wrote for so many artists out there. Of course, Taylor Swift wrote tons and tons of songs across not only top 40 but country as well. And what always interested me And I'm pretty sure, correct me if you have any knowledge of this, Steven, but um, Taylor Swift, as I know it to this date, is still or was still the youngest uh, writer that Sony Music had ever hired. She was like 14 or 15, I believe, at the time when she was an actual writer, professionally on a regular
Yeah.
basis, which blew my mind. You weren't even in high school, or you were barely in high school,
Yeah.
and you were making them pretty. Because look, if you want to get in the record industry and actually make money doing it, especially now in this day and age, writing is where you make your money.
Oh, absolutely.
Really.
Well, everything on a record is points. So you get points for playing on a record, you get points for singing on a record, you get points for writing on the record. I mean, there's so many different things. The more points you have, obviously, the more money you make. So,
And that's 100%. Trent Reznor is probably one of the first people that come to mind where he is just absolutely cleaning house because he writes his own stuff. He will play all of the instruments on most of his on most of his albums, which is why Nine Inch Nails always took so long to put music out, and then he would turn around on tour and then hire a band to play his stuff, which that is the easiest way to cut every corner possible and still be a professional recording artist in this day and age. And he
right.
cleaned house doing it, and still does it. Still does it. So, but of course, top of my list, Prince.
Oh, yeah. Prince wrote so many
Prince,
songs for other people under pen names and
so
pseudonyms.
many, so many, and yes, and under different names. Yes, and that's what fascinated me is it to me that always told me that he didn't care necessarily about the credit. He didn't care about the money. He just wanted to put music out there. And I wonder to an extent that, when he would put something out under a name that nobody knew, that he would go, yep, that's mine. Nobody knows that, but that's
I don't
mine.
know, but I saw an interview with him once where he was like, "Do you listen to new music?" He's like, "No, I don't listen to new music. If I want new music, I'll go create some."
Yep. And that's amazing. Especially as a former professional singer, as a musician, as a radio performer, professional radio DJ. I use those with air quotes. Um, that is amazing to me. I don't have to listen to the music. I'll just go lock myself in the studio for
So
hours, days, months at a time and make my own. I don't have to hear it. I
yeah,
don't have to hear it. I can create my own sounds.
it's pretty wild.
And he did. He did.
Yeah, it's
Um,
incredible talent.
we mentioned a few weeks ago some of the big ones, Manic Monday, Nothing Compares, by Sinead O'Connor. Um, I Feel For You by Shaka Khan. I think in the back of my mind, I knew he wrote that song.
Yeah, you can
And it's
hear it.
one of the, yeah, I was just going to say that. It's one of those songs when you listen to it, you can really hear the Prince influence on that.
Do you know what else he
Um,
wrote? Do you know he wrote "Toy Soldiers" for Martika that Eminem sampled in the?
yes, I actually did know that. I did know that. What I didn't know was Round and Round by Tevin
Evan
Campbell.
Campbell.
Back in the early 90s. Tevin
Yep.
Campbell was one of my favorite artists in the early 90s. I did not know he wrote that song. The absolute song that blew my mind, and I had no idea until you really listen and think about the style of the song. It has that old school gospel flair that Prince liked. How Come You Don't Call Me by Alicia Keys.
Oh yeah,
I did not know that Prince wrote that song quietly too.
yeah. See, I can always tell a Prince song by either it's the title and it's the like. There's always like a level of funk in everything he writes in some, whether it's
Hmm.
mild or whether it's full blown. Like
Well,
there's
this one, and I always feel like "How Come You Don't Call Me" always kind of leans more towards the old gospel, real old gospel lead singer with the choir in the background, type of R&B fusion, that um Prince was really real, like if you look up a lot of the gospel type songs that Prince wrote, or even gospel songs. See, there are some that are like literal straight gospel songs that he's written. And How Come You Don't Call Me kind of fits in that, into that mold. For me at least, is what I hear. But I must have heard that song at least 12 dozen times and never really, like, it's one of those things where now that when I did my research and kind of looked into things, I went, okay, yeah, I hear that now. I totally hear that now. But
Yeah.
Prince is probably one of my favorite writers, next to Ryan Tedder, actually.
Speaking of Prince, I remember Brent Carey and I went to see Prince on the Musicology tour, which was fantastic. Still top five, still in my top five of my greatest concerts I've ever seen, because the time
Yeah.
was there and everything else. And I mean, it was just hit after hit after hit after hit. But he came out on stage, and there's a company that's changed its name since then, but at the time it was called Clear Channel. And he came out on stage and he's like, y'all listen to the radio? He's like, Clear Channel, clearing the channels of any kind of good music. And I was like, whoa.
I love it. I love it. That is awesome. Jab. Below the belt jab.
Like, oh, okay. But it was fun. It was fun. Like, it's just, he was it's the one person where, like, I almost got a chance to meet him once. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, that is, if, okay, so Prince, Michael Jackson, honestly, Luther Vandross, and gosh, there is one other artist that I just can't think of off the top of my head who has left our wonderful earth, that I regret not seeing.
Oh.
That it would have done anything if you would have told me that this artist would have been gone and at such and such a time. I would have spent my last penny to see.
I got invited to watch AC/DC, and I'm, mind you, other than Shook Me All Night Long and like 5 other songs, and this is going to be like, people who know me from rock radio are going to punch me in the stomach for this.
Oh my gosh, you're going to tell me you passed up the chance.
I did. I'm not a huge AC/DC fan, but I had the opportunity to go, and it was a Tuesday night, and I was doing a morning show. So I said, nah, I'll catch him on the next run. Malcolm died a year later. And I kicked myself for that forever. So now, like, anytime I've had a chance to go see a legendary band, I've done it just because, like, all right, I learned my lesson.
That's good. And I think it was like a week or two, I said that, kind of the same thing. I'm at that point in time of my life. For one, working in radio, you don't get to see, unless it is a show that you're not actually working.
Right.
You don't really get to see too many shows. No. That's one of the number one things that people bring up to me when I tell them that I worked in radio. Oh, I bet you've seen the greatest shows. Nope, not really. I've been in the backstage at some great shows, but I've not actually seen the shows.
For the record, that's a conversation for another day. Let's talk about the backstage experience. One point.
Some of my other favorites. Ed Sheeran is a big one.
Yep.
Did not know that he wrote East Side by Billy Blanco. Billy Blanco and Halsey Khalid. That does not sound like Ed Sheeran to me.
But see, I can hear Ed Sheeran when he does stuff. He wrote "Love Yourself" for Justin Bieber, and I can totally I can hear
him there.
Yeah.
What about "Make It Right"? BTS.
Oh,
he wrote that one, and I had that. And I'm not a BTS fan. That song that's one of the songs, like, There's a list, and this is probably another topic in and of itself. There are a list of the cheesiest bubblegum popcorn top 40 songs that you could possibly play. LaRue,
Okay.
for me, is one of them. That I don't care where I am, I don't care who you are. That song comes on, I'm cranking that shit up. But Make It Right BTS is another one.
Really?
And I can't even understand half the damn song, but I love that. I just something about the feeling of that song. Like you don't have to necessarily understand lyrics in a song to enjoy the feeling of a song. And that's
I agree
probably
with
one of them. I just love that song. I really, really do.
that.
Um,
I agree with that.
Bad Bunny, yeah, for sure, is probably one of my favorite Latin artists, and I know some Spanish to know sometimes what he might be talking about, but yeah, I don't. You don't have to understand the lyrics to enjoy the feel of the song. One of my favorite songs, and this blew my mind when I learned who wrote this song, and when I hear it, there are so many other artists that I can still hear sing this song and I would still love it. Is Halo by Beyonce. Ryan Tedder wrote that.
That doesn't surprise me. Ryan Tedder's wrote a lot of stuff for a lot of people.
He did. He wrote Bleeding Love, Leona Lewis, one of my favorite female British artists out there. Love Somebody, and Maps by Maroon 5.
Maps could have been a One Republic song, and it would have probably
It
sounded.
really could have. It like Maps is probably the most totally. If you hear One Republic and then hear Maroon 5 Maps, you'd go, okay, is that the same band? They sound slightly different, but if you didn't have knowledge of either group.
Right. No, I agree with you. And it's funny when you hear the actual artist that wrote the song actually play it. It's kind of weird because you're so used to somebody else singing it.
The name of the song is called All I Ask. And I'm probably going to go back after we post this and post both versions of this in the comments, just because I really want anybody that's listening to us to hear both songs and just understand what I'm talking about. I think Bruno's version of it is better because it's coming from Bruno. Like when you hear the song, like we were just talking about, when you can hear a song and hear another artist's style within that song, I think Bruno just kills it. And which is why I don't think there's an official LP recording of Bruno. It's like a live version that he did on some UK show, but I'll post it in the comments later on. But man, that song, if there are any songs written by someone else that someone did and performed themselves, that is the top of my list. But anyway, I could go on and on and on and on about writers. Sia and Neo is another great R&B writer that a lot of people don't know. That is written for a ton. In fact, he was probably a famous writer behind the scenes before he became an actual artist himself. So, but anyway, we don't have enough time to keep going, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here, and that's what's on my mind.
Fair enough. All right. So music and displaced radio people. So I will.
They go hand in hand, don't they?
Unfortunately, they do. So that's what's on our minds. Hopefully, it's what's on your mind. If you've got anything, by all means, add us in the comments.
Comment, yes, please. If there are other artists that you know of, who wrote other songs, that are out there, love to re-explore this, topic maybe later on, and we can add those into the topic as well.
For sure. And to our out of work radio brethren,
yes,
something sooner than later. And it's
to those I've talked to, there are those that I'm going to reach out to, and those that I haven't, that I don't get a chance to reach out to. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I'm really sorry for what's happened, and I really hope you find something that you enjoy in the near future.